"Give me one reason not to banish you before sunset," Adrian Whitmore said, and honestly, I thought that was a little intense for a first conversation. Then I looked down at the embroidered black coat, the silver signet ring on my hand, and the overturned cup of tea beside Claire Bennett's chair. That was when my morning became significantly worse. I knew this room. I knew the marble floor, the stained glass windows, and the handsome man staring at me like disappointment had learned how to wear a tailored suit. I had fallen asleep reading The Crown's Beloved, a fantasy romance in which Adrian was the flawless male lead, Claire was the kind-hearted heroine, and Noah Carter, unfortunately, now me, was the jealous villain who spent 200 pages making terrible decisions. In the original story, this Tea Party scandal began Noah's downfall. By the final chapter, he had lost his title, his home, and every person willing to tolerate him. I had always thought he was badly written. Now I was standing in his shoes, and they were half a size too small. "Well?" Adrian asked. His voice was calm, but the entire room seemed to lean toward him. Claire sat nearby, pale and confused, while a dozen nobles watched me with the delighted focus of people who had just been handed free entertainment. I needed an explanation. A brilliant one. "Instead," I said, "I can help you get a girlfriend." Silence. Pure, polished, expensive silence. Adrian blinked once. Claire blinked twice. Somewhere near the window, a man choked on his coffee. I smiled because panic had apparently taken control of my face. "Not just any girlfriend," I added. "The right girlfriend. Someone intelligent, gracious, politically useful, and already in this room." Claire slowly pointed at herself. I pointed back with both hands, as if we were completing a business transaction. Adrian's expression did not change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. In the novel, he was famous for being unreadable. Standing 3 feet away from him, I discovered that unreadable was author language for terrifyingly observant. "You expect me to believe," he said, "that you invited Lady Claire here, insulted her family, overturned her tea, and created a public scandal because you wanted to introduce us." Put like that, it sounded weak. "My method needs refinement. Your method needs supervision." That was not the response I remembered from the book. Adrian stepped closer, and I resisted the urge to step back. He was taller than I had imagined, with dark hair, sharp blue eyes, and the kind of perfect posture that suggested he had never once tripped over a rug in public. I disliked him immediately, mostly because he was looking at me as though he could hear every anxious thought in my head. 30 days, he said. "You will remain at Whitmore Manor while I investigate what happened here. During that time, you will prove this ridiculous claim." "The matchmaking claim?" "The claim that you are not my enemy." A strange warmth spread across my wrist. Red letters appeared beneath my cuff, glowing against my skin. "Villain route active. Final judgment in 30 days. I covered the words before anyone noticed and forced another smile. 30 days to avoid Noah Carter's ending. 30 days to make Adrian fall for Claire. Simple. Completely manageable. Then Adrian glanced at Claire, looked back at me, and said, "For the record, Carter, I have no interest in being matched with anyone." The way his gaze lingered made my stomach drop. The story had barely begun, and somehow, the male lead was already looking at the wrong person. By breakfast the next morning, I had created a 12-step plan to make Adrian fall in love with Claire, and by lunch, Adrian had somehow turned every step into an opportunity to follow me around. My first idea was simple. Arrange 2 seats at the Royal Opera, place Adrian beside Claire, and disappear before either of them could object. I personally delivered the tickets to his study, where Adrian sat behind a dark oak desk reading reports with the grim concentration of a man reviewing the final hours of civilization. "An opera," he said, examining the tickets. "Lady Claire enjoys music," I explained. "You enjoy sitting silently while other people sing about their feelings. It is practically fate." Adrian looked up. "There are 3 tickets." I glanced down. There were absolutely 3 tickets. The 3rd is decorative. Then it will decorate the seat beside me. That evening, Claire sat on Adrian's left, I sat on his right, and Adrian spent the entire performance asking why I kept whispering predictions 5 seconds before every dramatic reveal. I had read the novel. I knew the plot. Unfortunately, I could not explain that without sounding unstable. My second plan involved a picnic beside the rose gardens. I packed Claire's favorite pastries, Adrian's preferred tea, and enough flowers to make the setting look aggressively romantic. Then I claimed I had urgent business elsewhere. Adrian caught my sleeve before I made it 6 feet. What urgent business? Private business. Be specific. Very private business. Claire covered a smile with her napkin. 10 minutes later, I was sitting between them while Adrian ate the lemon cakes I had baked for Claire. Those are hers, I whispered. She said I could have one. You have eaten 4. They are excellent. He said it casually, but the compliment warmed my face in a way I deeply resented. My third plan was perfect. I invited Claire to the library, told Adrian she needed help finding a rare history book, and hid behind a shelf so they could speak alone. They exchanged exactly 2 polite sentences before Adrian turned toward my hiding place. Carter. I held my breath. I can see your shoes. I looked down. My shoes were, in fact, visible beneath the shelf. I stepped out with as much dignity as a discovered burglar could manage. Claire sighed. Noah, perhaps you should stop trying so hard. I am trying the correct amount. You made a seating chart for breakfast. Romance requires organization. Adrian crossed the room and took a folded page from my coat pocket before I could stop him. My entire plan unfolded in his hands. Opera, picnic, library, horseback ride, moonlit garden, emergency rainstorm, if available. His eyes moved slowly down the list. You scheduled our first meaningful conversation for Thursday. I left Friday open in case Thursday lacked emotional progress. Claire stood and collected her books. I suddenly remember an appointment. She passed me with an apologetic smile, leaving me alone with Adrian. The library doors closed. Silence settled between us. Adrian stepped closer, still holding the plan. Why are you doing this? I told you. I am proving that I am not your enemy. By deciding whom I should love. Claire is kind, intelligent, and clearly suited to you. That was not my question. His voice softened, which was somehow worse. He stopped only a foot away. Are you arranging all of this because you want something from me, or because you cannot tolerate the possibility that I might choose for myself? The red words beneath my cuff warmed against my skin. I forced a laugh. You are the male lead. Choosing correctly is your entire purpose. Adrian's gaze dropped briefly to my covered wrist, then returned to my face. And what is yours? I had no answer. He folded the plan once, placed it carefully in his pocket, and said, Tomorrow's horseback ride is canceled. Why? Because I am taking you into town. That is not part of the plan. For the first time, Adrian smiled. It was small, almost invisible, and entirely unsettling. I know. The next morning, Adrian took me into town under the deeply suspicious excuse of investigating the Tea Party incident, although he spent the first 10 minutes asking whether I had eaten breakfast. Yes, I said. What did you eat? Food. Carter. A piece of toast. Adrian stopped beside the carriage and looked at me with the quiet disappointment of a man discovering civilization had failed. 5 minutes later, I was holding a warm apple pastry he had purchased from a street vendor, while Adrian pretended not to notice how quickly I ate it. The town looked exactly like the illustrations in the novel. Narrow brick streets, bright shop awnings, flower boxes beneath every window, and a clock tower rising above the market square. What the book had failed to mention was the smell of fresh bread, the noise of wagon wheels, and the alarming number of strangers who seemed to know Noah Carter. Most of them moved aside when they saw me. A few lowered their voices. One elderly shopkeeper pulled her grandson closer. The original Noah had apparently been unpleasant in ways the author had considered too minor to describe. Adrian noticed my expression. Does that bother you? Being welcomed like an approaching tax audit? A little. You earned their distrust. I know. The answer came out too quickly. Adrian studied me, but before he could ask another impossible question, a young florist waved from across the street. She told us that the tea delivered to Claire had not come from her usual supplier. Someone had paid in cash and used Noah's family seal on the order. That was useful information. It was also terrible information because only 3 people had access to that seal, and one of them was currently wearing it. We followed the delivery route beyond the market, where the paved road narrowed into a muddy trail. Clouds gathered overhead, dark and fast. We should turn back, I said. You scheduled an emergency rainstorm, Adrian reminded me. That was for romance. This is weather. Thunder rolled across the hills. Adrian looked almost amused. The rain arrived less than a minute later, cold and heavy. soaking us before we reached an abandoned hunting lodge half a mile away. Inside, the roof leaked in 3 places, the fireplace refused to cooperate, and there was one blanket folded on a dusty chair. Of course there was one blanket. The universe had no subtlety. Adrian removed his damp coat and placed it around my shoulders before I could protest. "You need it more," he said. "You are also wet." "I am aware." "Then this arrangement is inefficient. Most things involving you are." I should have been offended. Instead, I laughed, and Adrian went very still, as if the sound had surprised him. The red mark beneath my cuff suddenly burned. I pulled my sleeve down, but he caught the movement. His fingers closed gently around my wrist. "Show me." "It is nothing." "You are a terrible liar." "That is unfair. I have been lying constantly." His thumb rested near my pulse, warm and careful. The letters brightened through the fabric. Adrian saw them. His expression changed. Not anger. Recognition. "I have seen this before," he whispered. My breath stopped. "Where?" He released my wrist slowly and looked toward the rain-covered window. "In dreams. The room seemed to shrink around us." "What happens in them?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "You stand in front of me. You look frightened, but you tell me everything is fine." He turned back, and the distance between us suddenly felt much smaller than 1 step. "Then you disappear, and I wake up knowing I failed you." I forced a laugh that sounded wrong even to me. "Dreams are not reliable. Neither are stories," he said, "especially when someone is trying too hard to force the ending." Outside, lightning flashed across the sky. Inside, Adrian looked at me like he was beginning to remember a life I had not lived yet. By the time Adrian and I returned to Whitmore Manor, the rain had stopped, but my thoughts had not. He remembered dreams of losing me. I had a glowing deadline on my wrist. Somewhere in town, someone was using my family seal to frame me. Naturally, the most urgent problem was Claire waiting outside my room with her arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. Those words had never improved anyone's evening. I glanced at Adrian, silently requesting rescue. He gave me a calm nod and walked away. Traitor. Claire entered my room, closed the door, and placed my matchmaking schedule on the table. Adrian had apparently returned it to her, which felt like a violation of professional confidentiality. "Noah," she said, "why are you trying to make Adrian fall in love with me?" "Because you are perfect for each other. We have had 4 conversations. Quality matters more than quantity. In one of them, he asked whether you had eaten lunch. I opened my mouth. Claire raised one finger. In another, he asked why you avoid mirrors. Yesterday, he wanted to know whether you always laugh when you are frightened. She stepped closer. He does not ask me about myself. He asks me about you. That was ridiculous. Adrian was investigating me. Closely, constantly, with unsettling eye contact. He is suspicious, I said. He remembers how you take your tea. That proves nothing. He left a council meeting because you had a fever. I was very warm. Claire stared at me until my confidence collapsed under its own weight. Then her expression softened. Noah, he watches the door whenever you leave a room. Something inside my chest shifted, small and dangerous. I looked away. He is supposed to choose you. According to whom? The mark beneath my sleeve warmed. I pressed my hand over it. Claire noticed, but did not ask. I do not want a man who sees me as an obligation, she said. And I refuse to become part of a future neither of us chose. Before I could answer, someone knocked. Adrian entered without waiting, his gaze moving from Claire to me. Am I interrupting? Yes, I said. No, Claire said at the same time. She collected the schedule and handed it to him. I was explaining that I am withdrawing from Noah's campaign. You cannot withdraw, I said. There are still 8 events. Claire smiled. Good luck with those. She left, closing the door behind her. Adrian unfolded the schedule. Moonlit Garden, he read. That one was canceled. You cannot cancel romance indefinitely. I am not canceling romance. His voice was quiet. He crossed the room and placed the paper on my desk. I am canceling your version of it. I stepped back. The edge of the desk stopped me. Claire is kind. I know. She is intelligent. I know. She would make an excellent partner. For someone else. My heartbeat became unhelpfully loud. You do not know what you are saying. Adrian stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint rainwater still caught in his dark hair. I know exactly what I am saying. You are supposed to want her. I do not. The words landed softly, but they changed the room. I swallowed. Then what do you want? His expression gentled. You. For once, I had no clever answer. No excuse. No plan. Adrian lifted one hand, paused, and waited. When I did not move away, his fingers brushed my cheek. The touch was careful, almost questioning. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I should have. Instead, I leaned closer. His kiss was brief, warm, and impossibly gentle, like a promise neither of us knew how to name. Then the black book on my desk snapped open by itself. Its pages began turning faster and faster. Red words appeared across the paper. The male lead has rejected the chosen path. Correction begins at midnight. The book slammed shut before either of us could touch it, and the clock in the hallway began counting down the final 20 minutes before midnight. I stared at Adrian. Adrian stared at the book. My lips still carried the memory of his kiss, which felt wildly inappropriate considering reality had just announced plans to correct me. You should leave, I said. No, that was not a suggestion. It sounded like one. He picked up the book, but its cover would not open. I reached for it, and the red mark beneath my sleeve flared with sudden heat. Adrian caught my hand before I could hide it. The letters had spread from my wrist toward my palm. Villain correction pending. This is because of me, he said. Technically, it is because you ignored an extremely organized romantic schedule. His expression remained serious. Noah. The way he said my name stripped the humor from the room. I looked away. The book expects you to choose Claire. When you chose me instead, it decided something had gone wrong. Nothing went wrong. Adrian, I am wearing a magical warning label. He guided me toward the chair beside the fireplace and knelt in front of me. A man with his title was not supposed to kneel for anyone, especially not the person history had already named his enemy. Yet there he was, carefully rolling back my sleeve as if the glowing words might bruise under his touch. In my dreams, he said, I always believe the story. I believe every accusation. I do exactly what everyone expects. His thumb hovered beside the mark. Then I lose you. My throat tightened. Those dreams might not be memories. They feel like grief. That answer was too honest, so I attempted the mature response of studying the carpet. Adrian continued quietly. I remember a garden covered in snow. I remember you apologizing for something you did not do. I remember reaching for you too late. Stop. Why? Because I might believe you. His hand closed gently around mine. That is what I am asking you to do. The clock chimed a quarter before midnight. I laughed once, without humor. You met me 3 days ago. I recognized you 3 days ago. The difference landed somewhere beneath my ribs. Adrian rose and sat beside me, leaving enough space that I could move away. I did not. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. He wrapped a clean strip of linen around my wrist, covering words that cloth could not erase. His fingers were steady. Mine were not. I spent all day trying to give you to someone else, I whispered. I noticed. You should be offended. I was. You hide it well. I am reconsidering that habit. I looked at him then. Without the distance, without the cold formality, he seemed less like the perfect hero from a novel and more like a tired man who had been searching for an answer he could not name. He lifted his hand, stopping before he touched my face. I leaned into his palm first. The choice felt small. It also felt like mine. If the correction begins, I said, you cannot trust whatever I do. Then I will trust who you are. You do not know who I am. You protected Claire when everyone expected cruelty. You returned money to a shopkeeper who feared you. You pretend not to be hungry. You laugh when you are frightened. His gaze softened. And you keep trying to save everyone except yourself. The clock began striking midnight. 1 chime. 2. 3. The room darkened, and the book opened on its own. My arm moved before I decided to move it. I stood. Adrian stood with me. Across the page, a new command appeared in red. The villain will complete his role before sunrise. Then a single name formed beneath it. Claire Bennett. My body moved before my mind could object. I crossed the room, opened the door, and stepped into the dark hallway with Adrian beside me. Noah, he said quietly. I tried to stop. My feet kept moving. This would be an excellent time to ignore me and run. I have ignored every sensible thing you have said so far. That is not comforting. The red mark beneath the linen burned hotter with every step toward Claire's room. My hand reached for the door handle. Adrian covered it with his own. Look at me. I cannot. You can. I turned because the command inside me wanted the door, but some smaller, stubborn part of me still wanted him. His blue eyes held mine. Steady, familiar, terrified, although he was trying very hard not to show it. Tell me what the book is making you do, he said. It wants me to frighten Claire. It wants everyone to see the villain they expect. Then we will give it nothing. My fingers twisted against his. You need to lock me somewhere. No, Adrian, this is not a debate. You are correct. I have decided. The door opened from the other side. Claire stood there in a blue robe, holding a candle and looking remarkably calm for someone who had discovered two men outside her room at midnight. Should I be concerned? She asked. Yes, I said. No, Adrian said. Claire looked between us. That was not helpful. The mark pulled me forward. My shoulder struck the doorframe, but Adrian caught me before I lost my balance. I grabbed the nearest object, a silver letter opener from Claire's writing desk, and stared at it in horror. I did not want it. My hand would not release it. Claire slowly placed the candle down. Noah, can you hear me? Unfortunately, yes. I would prefer not to be present for this. The book's command tightened around my thoughts. Say the words. Play the part. Make her fear you. I raised the letter opener, but Adrian stepped between Claire and me. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not raise his voice. He only stood there. Move, I whispered. No, I do not control this. Then let me help you. I could hurt you. You will not. The certainty in his voice nearly broke me. My arm shook. Adrian came closer, slowly enough that I could have stepped away if my body had belonged to me. He closed his hands around mine, not forcing, only holding. You are not this role, he said. The red letters crawled higher beneath my sleeve. You do not know that. I know you saved Claire when no one was watching. I know you apologize to servants when you think they cannot hear. I know you are afraid, and you still keep choosing kindness. His forehead rested against mine. Noah Carter, come back to me. My name. Not villain. Not enemy. My name. The letter opener slipped from my fingers and landed harmlessly on the carpet. My knees weakened, and Adrian pulled me against him. I held his coat with both hands, breathing like I had been running for miles. Behind us, Claire picked up the black book. Its pages had stopped turning. There is writing beneath the command, she said. Adrian kept one arm around me as we looked. Claire held the page toward the candlelight. A faded seal appeared at the bottom, shaped like an open eye surrounded by thorns. Her face changed. I know this symbol. Where? Adrian asked. Claire swallowed. It belongs to the royal prophet. The book snapped shut. Somewhere deep inside the manor, a bell rang once. The correction had failed, and whoever had written our roles now knew we were fighting back. Claire locked the bedroom door, placed the black book on her desk, and said, I remember dying. There are sentences that make a room colder. That was one of them. Adrian kept one hand around mine, while Claire stared at the closed book as if it had personally insulted her. Not clearly, she continued. Pieces. A wedding I never wanted. A crown that felt too heavy. Adrian standing beside me, and looking like part of him had already disappeared. Her eyes shifted to him. You never loved me. Adrian did not deny it. Claire gave a small, humorless laugh. That should hurt more than it does. Claire, I began. Do not apologize. I did not love him either. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You concealed that remarkably well. I was raised to smile through diplomatic dinners. Concealing disappointment is practically a family tradition. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed watching the legendary male lead discover that the heroine had been equally uninterested. Instead, the mark on my wrist pulsed beneath the linen, reminding me that our personal embarrassment had magical consequences. Claire opened a drawer and removed an old silver pendant. The same iron thorn symbol was carved into its back. The royal prophet gave this to me when I was 12, she said. He told my parents I would become the heart of a perfect kingdom. That sounds less comforting now, I said. At the time, my mother cried. Families love ominous jewelry. Claire almost smiled. Then her expression sharpened. The prophet is not predicting our future. He is arranging it. Adrian released my hand only. Long enough to examine the pendant. Why repeat the same story? Control, Claire answered. If I marry you, our families unite. If Noah becomes the enemy, every failure has someone convenient to blame. The prophet remains the trusted man who guided the kingdom toward its happy ending. Happy ending. I looked at Adrian. He looked back, and for one quiet second, I saw the loneliness from his dreams. A perfect marriage. A stable kingdom. Two people trapped inside roles they had never chosen. So we refuse, I said. Claire folded her arms. That was my thought. The book will correct us again. Then we make it believe we are cooperating. Adrian understood first. The engagement ceremony. Claire nodded. It is scheduled in 3 days. The prophet will expect me to accept. Noah will be expected to object publicly. You will be expected to defend me. And everyone lives unhappily ever after, I said. Tradition preserved. Claire leaned over the desk. We follow the scene until the prophet exposes whatever power controls the book. Then we break it. Adrian looked at me. No, I blinked. We have not even reached the dangerous part of the proposal. You are not standing alone in front of the court while that mark controls you. I will not be alone. You nearly lost yourself tonight. And you brought me back. The words left me before fear could edit them. Adrian went still. Claire looked politely toward the window, although her reflection was clearly smiling. I continued, softer. You said you would trust who I am. I need you to let me do the same. Adrian's jaw tightened, but his hand found mine again. One condition. If anything changes, you come to me. Immediately. You do not improvise. That condition feels personally targeted. It is. Claire cleared her throat. There is one more problem. She turned the pendant over. Fresh red letters were forming across the silver. The ceremony has been moved to sunrise. I stared at the message. Of course it has. Evil destiny apparently hates reasonable preparation time. Beyond the windows, the eastern sky was already beginning to pale. Sunrise turned the ceremonial hall gold, which felt unnecessarily beautiful. For a trap, every noble family in the kingdom had gathered beneath the vaulted ceiling, dressed in silk, jewels, and expressions of intense curiosity. Claire stood at the center of the room in a white gown she had not chosen. Adrian waited beside her in formal black. I stood near the rear doors wearing the dark coat the original Noah had worn in every illustration labeled betrayal. Subtle. The royal prophet raised both hands, and the hall fell silent. He was older than I expected, with silver hair, pale eyes, and the warm smile of a man who had never once been questioned successfully. Today, he said, the kingdom witnesses the union destiny has promised. The mark on my wrist tightened. My feet moved forward. Murmurs spread through the crowd as I crossed the aisle. The black book floated open above the altar, its pages turning in an invisible wind. Red words appeared across my vision. Object. Accuse. Become what they expect. I stopped 10 feet from Claire. Adrian's eyes found mine immediately. Not the prophet. Not the book. Me. Lord Carter, the prophet said gently. Do you object to this union? My mouth opened. The command pressed against my thoughts. I forced the words through clenched fear. I object to the idea that any of us belong to you. The hall went still. The prophet's smile faded by one careful degree. You are confused. I have been confused for days. This is different. Claire stepped away from the altar. I will not accept this engagement. Shock moved through the room like a cold draft. The prophet turned toward her. Lady Claire, your future has already been revealed. Then whoever revealed it should have asked me first. I would have applauded, but the mark flared again. My body turned toward her against my will. Adrian moved between us, exactly as the story demanded. The prophet relaxed. He thought we had returned to the script. Adrian reached for the ceremonial sword at his side. My heart stopped. Then he removed it, set it carefully on the marble floor, and stepped away from it. No, he said. The prophet's expression finally broke. Lord Whitmore, fulfill your role. I have fulfilled it many times. Adrian's voice carried across the hall. I protected a kingdom that never asked whether we were happy. I accepted a future built from fear. I believed every lie that made Noah easier to lose. The black book trembled above the altar. Adrian walked toward me. The mark tried to force me back, but he kept coming. Choose the lady, the prophet ordered. Adrian stopped in front of me. I do not choose her. Claire lifted her chin. And I do not choose him. Several nobles gasped as if mutual honesty were the most scandalous event of the year. Adrian took my hand. The red letters beneath the linen burned through the fabric, but his grip remained gentle. I choose Noah. The words struck the room harder than any spell. The windows filled with white light. Pages tore free from the black book and circled above us like frightened birds. The prophet shouted something I could not hear over the sudden ringing in my ears. My fingers began to fade inside Adrian's hand. This was not part of the plan, I whispered. His face lost all color. Stay with me. I am trying. Claire rushed to the altar and lifted the silver pendant. The eye and thorns symbol glowed across its surface. The book is tied to this seal, she called. Break the seal, break the story. The prophet reached for it, but Elliot appeared beside Claire in a flash of blue light and closed his hand around the pendant first. I have always disliked jewelry with authority issues, he said. He pressed the seal between his palms. A sharp crack echoed through the hall. The pendant split. The black book burst into blank pages. The mark vanished from my wrist. My hand became solid again inside Adrian's. For one breath, nobody moved. Then Adrian pulled me close, his forehead touching mine as if he needed proof that I was real. Around us, the final red words faded from the air. There was no villain, no heroine, no promised ending. Only Adrian holding my hand while an entire kingdom watched destiny lose. 3 months after destiny lost, I discovered freedom involved an unreasonable amount of paperwork. The kingdom did not collapse. The sun continued rising, merchants continued overcharging tourists, and the palace kitchens continued serving oatmeal with the consistency of wet cement. What changed was quieter. Claire refused the crown and became a royal diplomat, which suited her perfectly because she could end an argument with one raised eyebrow. Elliot accepted leadership of the Magical Council, then immediately replaced its 12-page dress code with a single rule asking everyone to wear shoes. Adrian surrendered his claim to the throne before the council could use it to arrange another convenient future. I asked whether he regretted it. He looked at me and said, "Not once." I believed him. That was still new for me, believing happiness without searching for the hidden condition beneath it. The mark on my wrist never returned. Sometimes I checked anyway, especially after bad dreams. Adrian always noticed. He would take my hand, turn it gently beneath the light, and remind me that there were no red letters, no countdown, and no role waiting to claim me. Only skin, only choice, only us. The black book remained in Elliot's office, but every page was blank. He called it a historic magical artifact. I called it an overpriced notebook with a superiority complex. One afternoon, Adrian asked me to meet him in the rose garden where my first matchmaking disaster had occurred. I found a small table beneath the flowering arch, set with lemon cakes, tea, and 2 chairs. Only 2. I asked. I am learning. He pulled out my chair, and I sat with the solemn dignity of a man who had once hidden behind a library shelf with both shoes visible. Adrian poured the tea. Claire sent a letter. Is she happy? Very. She negotiated a trade agreement, embarrassed 3 ambassadors, and purchased a dog. A complete life. She also asked whether you have finally stopped trying to arrange my romantic future. I considered lying, but Adrian had become annoyingly skilled at recognizing it. I have retired from professional matchmaking. Professional? I had a schedule. You scheduled emotional progress for a Friday. And emotional progress occurred. His mouth curved into the small smile that still made my thoughts forget their responsibilities. The garden was warm, the late afternoon sunlight resting across his dark hair. Once I had looked at Adrian and seen a character whose ending I needed to protect. Now I saw the man who took his tea without sugar, read reports beside open windows, and quietly left pastries outside my door when I forgot breakfast. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. You spent an entire month attempting to give me to someone else, he said. In my defense, I was under pressure. You were terrible at it. That is unfair. The match was successful. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Was it? I turned my hand beneath his and threaded our fingers together. You fell in love with the right person. I only read the name incorrectly. His expression softened. He stood, drew me gently closer, and waited. He always waited. I closed the distance myself. The kiss was warm and unhurried, with no magic watching and no story demanding what came next. Above us, white pages drifted from the open window of Elliot's tower, caught by the breeze and carried across the garden like small wings. Every one of them was blank. For the first time, that did not frighten me. It felt like an invitation.